It's okay. Let's get it together, Ken. Okay. It's Saturday, February 24th, and welcome to my shop. I have behind me a 2000 Mercedes S500. And just this past week, I decided I wanted to do a series of alerts. I'm going to take each chassis, each model, and do a series of 10 top alerts that I want to share for an owner or someone who might be looking to purchase one of these cars. You know, these alerts are going to include little things that are often missed that could cause big problems. They're going to include things that are often missed by shops or mechanics. And they're going to include things you can do yourself to just make the cars more pleasurable to own and drive. So I'm going to start with a W220. This is the W220 chassis here. Once again, little things that are often missed or overlooked, and they could cause trouble down the road if not taken care of early. A lot of this is preventative maintenance. You know how I harp on preventative maintenance. So I've got my list now. I've got two of them that I'm going to film today, all right? And they're going to involve something right down in here and something in the engine compartment. And you'll get to view those on YouTube as separate videos. Now outside it's snowing. Kind of a late February winter here in the Pacific Northwest. And a tow truck just arrived with a vehicle. Now this vehicle is not a Mercedes-Benz. You know, I thought, oh, maybe I should not include this in my Saturday at the shop series because it's, you know, it's not a Benz. But there's something we might be able to learn from this, okay? So I apologize, it's not a Mercedes, but it is a car and it has a problem, and it has a big problem. So we're gonna look at this and together we're gonna decide what is the best approach to take, because there's a number of different approaches you could take to fixing this car, okay? So let me take you outside now, and I'm going to show you the problem that I'm going to be dealing with later today as we get into this and try to find out what the real cause is. I've also got Fritz here in the shop today. I know some of you are thinking, Ken, are you ever going to finish with Fritz here? Well, why do you think it's called Fritz in the first place? It's still on the Fritz. But if I have time today, I'm going to show you some of the things I'm working on. You know, they're little things, but they all need to be done to make this a reliable driver, because that is my true intent here with this car. So here's the car. It's a 97 Toyota Landcruiser. Now I want you to listen to the problem. Oh, that doesn't sound very good. Any of you gearheads know right away. That is not a good sound. I'm going to turn this off. So what are we going to do about this? Get a new engine? Put a Chevy V8 in it? Put a Cummins diesel in it? Part it out? So we're going to roll this into the shop here shortly, and we're going to do some preliminary exploratory surgery here to try to figure out whether it's worth saving this engine or looking for something else. Before I bring the Landcruiser into the shop here and have Jerson help me pull that valve cover, I'm going to do a couple of things on Fritz. And one of them is to finish up this battery tray. You know, this thing was so rusty, and I really need to get this done. I need to get it back in the car so I get the battery in there permanently before I go test driving the car. So I've gone ahead and put the heavy coat of Miracle paint on it. It's very, very messy. You want to use a lot of plastic. Always wear gloves. And now I've let it sit about, 20-25 minutes, and I'll just come back in here after about that amount of time and make sure I don't have any runs, because it goes on pretty thick and you want to let it dry on there thick, but you really don't want to have those heavy runs. So I'll just kind of stroke lightly through this, and I may come back in another half hour and recheck this. Now notice what I've done. I've painted the other side and then I've turned it upside down, and I only have it hitting on 3 points, because I'll have to touch those up when I'm all done. But look at how I've used plastic. And then when you finish, make sure and try to get the lid back on this as quickly as possible, and always use saran wrap when you're putting the lid back on the Miracle paint. Let me show you again what happens to someone who put the lid on a different kind of Miracle paint and did not use the saran wrap. Oh, and I also had to go into the engine compartment and do some Miracle paint work underneath the battery tray. There's a few rust spots there, but it wasn't too bad. This will take all night. I won't be able to put this back in a day, but tomorrow or Monday I'll probably be able to put the battery tray back in and get that battery anchored down permanently. So here's the can that just got the lid pushed back on. Even the lip area was not cleaned out. Now let me warn you, even if you clean this lip area out really well, if you have any Miracle Paint at all, this lid is going to stick to the can. And so I always recommend using saran wrap or some sort of plastic, even if you get this lip and groove really clean. But watch this. You cannot. I will literally have to cut this can apart. I'll have to get another can, and there's no way that I'm going to be able to get the lid off this can of Miracle Paint by prying it with a screwdriver. While the Miracle Paint's drying on that battery tray, I want to check out my sunroof. You know, do some preliminary tests on it, kind of do a little troubleshooting, kind of see what I'm going to have to do. I already know some of the seals don't look very good, but it has this aftermarket air dam, and I don't like these. I think they're kind of ugly. You know, the color's like a dark blue, so it certainly doesn't go with the color of Fritz here. But as with a lot of things like this, I'm having a hard time getting these two screws off that hold this plastic air dam to the roof. Now there's two ways you can approach frozen screws like this if they will not loosen up. Of course, you can go through the whole penetrant stuff. These screws, these are steel screws going into an aluminum nut. So whoever made this aftermarket sunroof had no idea what they were doing as far as the similar metal corrosion. I see this so much, I just kind of shake my head. A steel screw in an aluminum nut in a high moisture environment like on top of the car. Oh boy. So let me show you. I'm going to try technique number 1, and if that doesn't work, we'll do technique number 2 to get the screw out right here. Well, here's the offending screw right here. Well, the first problem is it's a slotted screw head. So you need to make sure you get the right size screwdriver if you're going to try to take this out if it's frozen. You don't want a small bladed screwdriver. Look what I've got here. I've got my real wide, thick screwdriver that I use for just such occasions. A nice tight fit. Now the nut on the back side is round, so you can't even get a wrench on it. So I'm going to use my vice grips and get a hold of it on the back side here. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to break it. I'm going to deliberately break it. And this is the best way to do this with small screws, you know, under 1/4 of an inch. Is don't try to loosen it up, try to tighten it up. So if you tighten it up, you may be able to just snap it off and then you're done with it. Okay, let's see if we can do that. I think I'm just wearing that aluminum nut down. Okay, here we go. There it is. So look at that. I just broke that off. So look at the corrosion there. Can you believe that? You'd never get that off. You could soak it for 3 months and it's not going to come off. So if that doesn't work, let's say it's a little bit bigger and you can't break it. What I do, because this is a slotted screw, I need to find a way to drill the head off with a drill that's slightly larger than the diameter of the screw itself. So maybe, you know, like a 3/16 bit. And what I'll do is I'll get a cutoff tool and I'll make an X in it, because trying to get a bit started in a straight slotted screw head, you can run off and damage the surrounding area. So I'll take and make a cut this way, and then I'll come in and I'll start the drill right here. You may have to hold onto the nut on the back side, but just drill down just enough so the head comes off. If you have these type of screws that are frozen in the future, try breaking them first, and if that doesn't work, try drilling the screw head off to get them removed. All right, let's get this ugly thing out of the way. Oh, I got some presents down in there. So what am I looking for on this initial inspection? First, I'm looking for rust. Because this is a European car, and it's not too bad. There's a little bit of surface rust, but man, it's really nice. Sometimes you open these up and you get really bad rust in there. Now, I've seen them rust out and along the front area by the drain, and you can't even fix it. You have to tear the whole car apart. But I am going to be inspecting the drains and cleaning the drains. They're right in this corner. This is very important. if you've got a sunroof that's dripping on you, almost invariably it's plugged drains. You have a drain here and you have a drain in the back. Unfortunately, you can't really get to the back drain. You have to test it by using water to see how well the water runs out. And I'll be doing that a little bit later, probably not today. The other thing is I'm checking the air dam here. I'm making sure the springs are operating properly, and I'm looking at the seals, okay? And the front seal doesn't look too bad. It's still soft, it's not cracked, but these side felt seals are shot. Look at that, they're just coming out in chunks. Now this is the challenge, not only for me, but for all you owners of these 1985, 86 and older Mercedes-Benz that have these fixed sliding sunroofs. These side sunroof seals are no longer available. Oh man. So what I'm going to be working on this week with Fritz here is I've got some other material that's close. It's not going to be exactly the same, but it will substitute for these original seals here, because let me tell you, it really looks ugly if the seals are bad. Now remember, the seals don't seal out the water, so it's not a leaking issue. No matter what you do, water is going to go by those felt seals. They're sliding seals. They're to seal for wind noise. And the water gets down in these tracks or trays underneath the sliders here, and it goes out the drain holes. So it's not an issue of keeping water out. It's really an issue of cosmetics and keeping wind noise to a minimum. So that's going to be kind of fun. I'm going to have to see if I can get this other seal I found to fit properly and to look good. So it'll be a little bit challenging. The other thing I've got going here is I've got to check and see how well the mechanism's running. And it's running, but it's under a lot of stress. And when you find something like this, you want to fix it right away. Because if you don't, you're going to destroy the cable or you're going to ruin the motor and the transmission drive assembly. I've said this over and over again. It's all about lubrication. But if you do find that your sunroof is running slowly and you just don't have time to fix it right away, I'll show you this tip, but you have to promise me you have to fix it, okay? But let me show you what I do if I have a slow running sunroof. Okay, a couple things when you're testing your sunroof. If you're doing a lot of work on it, first I would recommend you put a battery charger on your battery. A weak battery can give you false indications of whether or not your sunroof is working properly. But I have a fully charged battery. I'm going to turn the key on, and we're going to try to bring the sunroof forward. Look at how slow it's moving. Now this is where I caution you. If you have this issue and you keep using your sunroof, you're eventually going to cause other damage, which could be very expensive to repair. That includes stripping out the cable, and some of these cables are getting hard to find, or stripping out the motor drive mechanism. So if you have this issue like you see here, then this is what you want to do. You want to fix it. But if you're using the sunroof at all before you fix it or during the time you fix it, give it a manual assist, okay? Watch what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to pull it forward. See how much faster it moves? And if I'm opening it, watch how slow it's going. Just get in there and give it a good push back. That takes some of the stress off the drive mechanism. Don't keep doing that, okay? Fix the sunroof. I have lots of resources on my website on how to repair and service these older sunroof mechanisms. Now I'm going to close it back up and clean it off. Now I'll briefly explain why I do not like those aftermarket sunroof wind deflectors. You already saw how they collect dirt, but the other problem is they also will mark the original paint, because there's all this vibration on that seal, and eventually the seal just kind of starts wearing down in the paint. Now I'm going to take some very fine sandpaper and rubbing compound of this, but I don't think I'm going to be able to save it. So that's number 2. And of course, number 3, my personal opinion, I think they're ugly. Let me try to show you the challenge I'm faced with in coming up with a solution for you owners of these older Mercedes-Benzes. The original seal is quite wide where the felt part is, and it's quite soft, okay? You see it's got this piece of aluminum edging on the back side. It fits in this way, it fits in sideways, not up and down, but sideways, and you push it in and you tighten that bracket down that holds it in place. You can kind of adjust a little bit. Then the sunroof slides along the side of the seal. The seal is quite compressible. I would say it probably compresses at least 1/16 of an inch. Okay, here is the original seal. And this is what most of them look like, unless they've been replaced. And it's really tough now that we can't get, factory style replacements anymore. It's actually, I'm thinking, well, somebody's got to figure out how to make these, because just think how many. I was even thinking maybe I got to figure out how to have this made by, the 100-foot lengths, because it's a big need for these old cars. Now, this other piece I've been messing around with right here, I'm kind of trial fitting it in here. Let's see if I can even get it out again. Okay. Now, initially it looks similar, see? You can see it looks similar, but if you look at the profile, it's different. And if you look at the back side, this is hard on the back side. It's only soft on this side. And when you push on the side, there's hardly any compressibility at all. So if I'm going to figure out how to make this work, I've got to fit it in there, and I have to show how to adjust this so that the sunroof is just sliding along that edge, because there's not a lot of give. So that means you can't have it out of adjustment. If you have it too far this way, you'll get the wind noise. If you have it too far that way, the sunroof is going to drag and be hard to close. So it's going to take some re-engineering on this piece by me during this next week, but I'm going to get on this one. I really think this is important. I'm going to try to create the solution, and if I get this done, I'll post a video on YouTube. This will be a kit that will come with rather lengthy instructions on how to install these yourself. So now I've got other issues. I got dirty drains, I got rust, I have tracks that have no lubrication, literally no lubrication. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the roof. I wrote a manual. I think it's probably been almost 15 years. It's one of the first manuals I wrote on how to fix these sunroofs, how to get the panel out off the car, how to lubricate everything. But I've never really done a video on it because I always had a manual. So I think this week I'll shoot a complete, probably hour-and-a-half long video on how to completely service the sunroof, the cable, the motor, get this panel out, lubricate the tracks, clean the slides, and on it goes. It's a pretty big deal, and if you don't do it, you're going to have problems with your sunroof. The other thing I've been working on recently is a solution for windows that are very hard to raise and lower. You've all been there. You hit the button or you turn the crank and they go up and they go down. Now, I'd say 50 to 60% of the time, if you pull the door panel and lubricate the mechanism and the slides down inside, you're going to get a huge improvement. But recently, I've had a couple where I've done that, and it's still running slow. Now, I haven't pulled the door panel off Fritz here, but this is a manual window. Watch this. I've got to literally almost pull on this crank, see this, to get the window down and even get the window up. This I've seen on a lot of cars recently. So I've been kind of researching what I can do, and I've been playing around with some different products. A lot of people say just spray some silicone spray in those channels. The problem is the silicone spray doesn't really do much. It's too thin. So I'm looking at some other products. You know how I love lubrication. So this may be a new lubrication product that I'm inventing, or at least modify, all right? The other problem with this door here, listen to this. Now I have a check strap that's totally binding up, and if you have something like this, you want to fix it, you can crack the doorpost. You break the doorpost metal right where it attaches. You don't want to just let that go. I've actually seen these things break and bind up to where you can't even get the door closed. So if you have one that's sounding like this, you either need to disconnect it completely or replace it. I think I'm going to just pull the door panel and kind of see what's going on in there real quick. And then next week, I'm going to continue to work on finding a solution to get really nice working manual and power windows on these 30-plus year old Mercedes-Benzes. The door panel came off relatively easily. It's in really good shape. There's no water damage on the backside, and the clips, at least most of the clips, only one is broken, are in place. So it hasn't been too abused, but you can see that It's been opened up before. This is obviously not factory glue, this kind of red spray adhesive that somebody threw in there. It really didn't stick very well. But I'm looking right down here at this track, and look, it's been lubricated. That is not the factory grease. Someone's got, and look, it's been lubricated. That is not the factory grease. Someone's gotten in here and lubricated this track assembly for the window. Maybe they were having the same problem I am, because look at this. You know, I'm still, even with this lubricated, I'm still having a hard time. It'll go up, but I gotta really work this to get the window up and down. So I suspect it's these channels that the glass rides up and down in. You know, they get old and I think they expand and they start squeezing on the glass. So I've got to find a way to get those to move more freely. Another little project for next week. Okay. All right, I think that does it for Fritz today. I'm looking at the clock. It's almost 2 o'clock. I think Jerson's probably done with lunch. I'm going to go grab him, and we're going to pull the Landcruiser into the shop and dig into that engine. You know, I really don't like that noise, and I'm advising that this car not be started or driven again until we open it up and find out what's really going on. So we're going to start by pulling the valve cover and see if it's anything related to the valve train. It's either a valve or piston noise because it's high up in the engine.
We should disconnect the battery.
Yes. You should do that. You know better, right? All right, well, you know, we just burned up all the wiring because we forgot to disconnect the battery. Well, it didn't take long for us to decide that working on this engine was a team sport. Right, Jerson? We had to get Jerson up in the engine compartment for access to the rear of the engine because, look, I can't even reach back there. We got all the tools up here in magnetic trays. Now, I'm acting like a mechanical dental assistant, right? So you need an extension? Here it is. Take it. And I got to slap it into your hand here like this, see, like the dental people do. Okay, give me that.
It is the crown.
Okay, there it is. What we're trying to do here is get this valve cover off and leave as much of the other stuff in place so we don't do too much work until we find out whether this engine is repairable. All right, the moment of truth has arrived. Let's pull that valve cover off and we might see something interesting. No! One more thing to remove. Ah, okay. Cut. We'll do it again. You're not going to get that by there. Hurry, Jerson. It's 4:30. Hurry.
4:30.
4:30.
Oh.
Not 1:30, 4:30. I got to get home to watch the Olympics.
Don't worry about that. Let's watch what's going on with this engine. You can watch the Olympics next year. We have nothing else to do.
Okay, ready? Let's try that again. Cross your fingers. Remember, glass half full.
Okay, let's see. Don't tell it got has some dirt in the top.
Okay, all right.
Wow.
What do we got?
Gotta check the lifters.
All right, now we're going to go ahead and check all the cam lobes. See if we got a really loose lifter. Looks like the timing chain's okay.
How can that only a little tiny change be in this engine?
I wonder if the tensioner could be rattling. I'll have to check that out too.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't look like there's going to be any miracle cure for this engine. We got in the car and spun it over with the starter while Jerson listened very carefully, and the sound is definitely not in the valve train. It's down deeper in the engine, probably between number 3 and number 4 cylinder. I suspect it's a piston skirt or possibly a wrist pin noise. So that means the head's going to come off, and you know, you start doing this and you're into a major overhaul, and that's not something that I want to do. Okay, so everything else looked pretty good up here. The cam lobes were all fine. I don't have a broken camshaft. All the gears look good. The chain looks good. So, you know, no easy fix today. So this Saturday doesn't come to the peak of excitement. I'm going to go home and feel a little sad, all right? As I mentioned earlier, it looks like it's time to get out of here, and I go home and watch the Olympics with my wife Linda. And you know, we were laughing about curling, but you know, it's the curling championships tonight. Maybe I'll sit and watch because, you know, the other night Linda says, no, I don't want to watch hockey. It was the girls' hockey final. Next morning she says, Ken, I think we should have watched that hockey game. We've been having a good time watching the Olympics. So I'm going to roll out of here a little bit early today and wish you all a great week. And we'll see you next Saturday. Okay, we've got a new name for it. It's no longer a Landcruiser, it's a Land Pusher. What?
You hook the button so I can lock the out of the gear, parking.
You can't hit the brake? Hit the brake.
Doesn't it have the electronic?
I gotta, okay, pop the hood. Come on, pop the hood. You gotta put the battery in it to get it out of gear.
That's a safety, man.
Okay.
Oh, you guys took the battery out.
I wanted to save the battery at least when I take it to the junkyard. Oh, not really. But you know, I'm sure someone's gonna say, why don't you put a 240D engine in it? Oh, it'd be reliable, but it wouldn't go anywhere. Now we're ready? Okay, the Land Pusher. Let's go. Well, for me, we got two options. We either find a good used engine or we put a Chevy V8 in it. Sorry.
Let it go, dude.
Okay. All right, don't run the curb. Okay, stop there. Okay. So he can mow if he has to. Thank you, sir. It looks good. I think, no, we're going to call this the Toyota Boat Anchor. All right, now we can head for home.
At least they have a really good tire.
Oh, it has good tires? Maybe I could sell those on Craigslist. Well, if nothing else, you'll have to admit at least it looks cool. The lesson here is this was an expensive mistake, but it could have been a lot worse.